should there be should there be a specific information session for the landholders where we address all the questions, and also where we're all there, and we let them talk and ask and just clarify any doubts they might have, and also to start a give and take relationship, because yesterday it was more hi Sue, it was more of a stakeholder mapping exercise. So, well, based on what we wanted to get out of the session, but then if we have other people coming on board, there must be a give and take relationship too, if you understand what I mean.
And I'll add to that, Vanessa, which I think, so I think that key learning is really, it's not that the pilot landholders shouldn't have been there. I think it's just that we need to make sure there's the prep work and communicate a bunch of stuff to them before they're there, because otherwise that's the first time. And it's just like everyone does when I try to explain this intricate little program that we've developed and model and stuff, it's all a bit like, whoa. And so it goes, the questions range from, what is green finance through to what's this, all the different streams of the program and stuff. So I think it's more I actually think it was really good to have the pilot landholders there, just because I think it bulked it out. Like we had 20 people there, which I thought was really great for a kickoff session. So I think it's more not necessarily that they shouldn't have been there. I think it's that actually we just a bit more legwork for, or a bit more introductory piece there, and acknowledging them as a particular stakeholder group that are at that meeting, and some of the comms pieces that need to go before then because of that.
I would agree, but I would my feeling is, for future projects, that there needs to be a standalone welcome session for the 10 pilot landholders where they can just hear about it, understand who the different partners are who are helping to deliver it, and have that chance to ask questions and get answers. And I felt like you needed to be there yesterday, Wardy, because there was so many questions around the green finance side of things.
I will be at the Bull Oak one.
So good.
Well, thanks for the learning. I'll become pre-armed, and pre-prepared for the next one. Yeah.
I think some other key learnings I had was sort of, I guess similar along those lines, just around, I guess I talked a bit about what success looks like from the broader project perspective, from a Landcare Victoria perspective, but I think we need to, there's going to be different layers of success. So there's success for the broader project, there's success for your landscape, so this Granite to Goulburn group and what you want to achieve for your landscape, and then there's individual landholder success. What does their participation look like as a motivation thing? And I reckon there's another neat comms piece that we need to do for Landcare Victoria to help sort of delineate those 3 levels of what success looks like in this project, just as another comms tool to help with that. So
Vanessa had a good idea that we briefly spoke about this morning that might be helpful to the group, which is doing a bit of a SWOT analysis to really sort of think about the project from different angles, and what it is that they do already understand, and what they where they're lacking and where they need the extra information.
That all makes sense to me. Have we got the program for Bull Oak, and can we throw a SWOT in there, Anthony, or is it too late?
Or also do it before the session, maybe, as a preparation.
So I've got a catch up with them probably the Monday morning, so I'll we can chat about it then.
I mean, it could be something to do just at the start of the day, to you present what the project's about, but then to get them really thinking about it, like to, you know, as you say, you can present what success looks like from your point of view, but then maybe get them to think about it from their point of view. And then that sort of leads into the SWOT analysis side of things. I don't know. It doesn't have to take a long time, but I feel like it would give them a chance to sort of just think about it from different points of view.
Anyway, we can shift the planning for the other one to the other thing, and yeah, I think they're all good. Yeah, good feedback. But I'd be keen to hear from anyone else from the G2G group around how they felt it went and the vibe. I thought it was a good vibe. But anyway, any other thoughts?
Well, I was really interested in the chicken farming group. They seemed to really know what they were wanting. They could tell us the things. They seem to already be a long way down the track, and I think they're looking for something quite specific from us, and I'm not quite sure what it is.
I actually thought, Vanessa, that Zoe might actually be a great person to not either, maybe even not come onto this working group, but co-opt for some of the particular sessions, Wardy, where you're looking at supply chains and that type of thing, because she was the so it's Tarosi, they're a
you know it, Wardy.
Yeah. So they've got farms in their area, and so they came along to the and they work closely with like Bass Coast Land Care down the south and stuff, and so they're very interested to develop that partnership and stuff. And so I think their knowledge was very useful for bringing some of that customer base, investor perspectives, and they were the ones putting up Coles and Woolies and Macca's and all that sort of stuff, and they've and Zoe's got contacts through that supply chain stuff
and working contacts, just not I know you. No, they've been working together and trusting each other.
And then the other guy, Janet, taught in grade prep, so became the running joke of the day, which was hilarious. So anyway, I have a think about that, Wardy, about how we can tap into that. I don't know how, Vanessa, you'll probably have a follow-up, I guess, but they're going to be one of the farm, like they're one of the landholders.
Wow.
They're pilot 10, so
yeah,
I think it's an opportunity.
It's a very different participant, but I think we need to be very open-minded, and they'll bring something very different to the table, which will be good for the project, I would think.
I'll just give you some working knowledge of Tarosi from our side. They're one of two, Tyson and Tarosi can take trim from all the abattoirs under license and turn it into 70% of the world's McDonald's patties just through Tyson and Tarosi, and that's globally. And so they're a very interesting player in that collectively Tarosi export 6 times the volume in tons of meat, not value, than Europe from Australia. So they're a massive player, right?
Wow.
But they take all the shit bits out of lots of cattle and turn them into hamburgers.
That's the business model they have at the moment.
No wonder I don't like eating them.
Yeah, but we cannot ignore that a big part of the population does, and so that's what life is.
So Tarosi are an amazing catch. Well done, guys. And I happen to know that McDonald's just got rid of Fulton, who's been their sole marketing group, so that they don't bid against one another at sale yards, and told them, you're not responsible for doing our sustainability anymore. We're bringing that back to America. And at the same time that they took that back to the States, they said to Tyson and Tarosi, you guys are our suppliers, so you have to come up with sustainability metrics for all the people that, and then Tyson will turn around, or Tarosi will turn around to the 20-odd abattoirs between Townsville and Launceston and say, well, now you need to give us the environmental data. And those 20 abattoirs will turn around to the collectively tens of thousands of farmers and say, well, you need to give us this data. So it all comes back on the farmers, but Tarosi are a critical part of that supply chain, at least for me. And so good job, guys. Yeah, I'm very keen to meet Zoe. Yeah. Shall we crack on with today? Is that all right? We're at week 2, and last week was our storming, forming, norming kind of discussion. But this week, what we're going to take you through is what the cat herder will need to do for these meetings is just make sure that they're across the content. So they've looked at the week that's coming up and they're prepared. If in this week, we're also going to make sure we've got our pilot 10 farmers and that those pilot 10 farmers have a link to bear with me, sorry, G2G onboarding. Sorry, my finger's being a bit slow. Gosh. And every time I go to click on it, it just updates. So, products, all products. So, Granite to Goulburn have their own product code. And Susie, thank you for coming through. But what this tells each of the farmers is what they're going to get. They're going to get a digital twin set up, legal boundary. We're going to map some assets of their farm into the digital twin. We're going to do a carbon footprint. We're going to look at carbon and biodiversity opportunities at a very high level for them. And then there's a report that identifies for each farmer. Now, the 10 farmers will have this onboarding process between week 2, which is this week, and week 5 in preparation before we do our week 6 mapping together. So when they buy, we just need to make sure that when they come to this page that identifies the product, it says it's $800, but they need to put in Vic Land Care as a coupon code, which reduces it to $0. Otherwise, they'll be asked for their credit card details for $800, which none of them want to do. They all want to hopefully get it for free. In terms of what then happens is Vanessa will, after being advised that this farmer has come through, organize a day, date, time for, schedule it for 2 hours, but it usually takes less than that. It usually takes about an hour, hour and a half. And then Vanessa's going to take them through the process that I'm going to demonstrate with Susie. So Susie, what I'd like to do, I'm on the wrong page, pardon me, is take you through a emissions calculation. Have you done an emissions calculation before?
No, should have, but just acknowledging that the farm that we farm, we have 2 farms, and the one that's in this project is new, and so it's pretty raw. Anyway, we'll go through it, but no, nothing. We've only had stock on there 3 times, so haven't done any of that stuff. No.
All right. Well, look, it'll be new for everybody. I think a lot of farmers are yet to do a carbon emissions estimate anyway. And then it is an estimate. It'll be wrong to plus or minus 10%. So you can't use it as a verified credential to kind of say, this is my carbon intensity. But you can get an idea of, well, what's the task at hand to become carbon neutral? And so if it's all right with you, I will take you and the group as observers through how a carbon emissions estimate is calculated. We're using Ruminati, which is a tool. You can use it if you're Tyson or Tarosi as a processor. You can use it as an abattoir, or in this case, we're going to use it as a farmer. Susie, what's the property name that we're going to do today?
Ah, that's a good question, actually. We haven't named it yet. Let's just call it Tabilk, Tabilk. Can I just quickly ask, is that an app, Ruminati, or something that?
It's a website.
Website?
And it's a bit of software, I guess.
Okay. But the
and
landholders will have access to that, will they? Or?
no, so we've got an enterprise level account for all of our FM, for all of our farmers and our regen advisors.
Got it.
And we're in the process of actually building our own calculator with the AIA, so the Australian, anyway, they're like a aggregation of GRDC, MLA, etc. And they've got all the calculators for all of the different commodities in Australia, whereas Ruminati is ruminants, so it's only really cattle and sheep and crops, so you don't have the full list of calculators. And Ruminati uses the sheep beef gaff tool, whereas AIA uses the sheep beef gaff tool, but also the dairy gaff tool, which probably Neil created or helped inform. So Tabilk, and then have you got cattle and sheep and crops, or just
just sheep? Yeah.
Sheep, great. Do you know what your pick is for that farm?
Yeah, bear with me.
Yep.
So not something I know off my head.
No.
It is in my contacts somewhere.
Yep. You've got plenty of time, and
yeah.
Well,
I'll come back to that. You keep asking questions.
Well, I can't move until I've got.
Oh, okay.
In the meantime, Wardy, just checking if I am doing this process with Rosie that have the poultry business. What am I?
Mate, don't even try. Like I'll teach you how to do a farmer, but a processor will be far too complex, I would suggest.
So they breed, and then of course we're looking at the breeding part of the operation, not the whole operation.
Yeah,
they have breeding sheds.
So you can totally do a farm, which is like a farmer, a producer, but I wouldn't try and do further up the supply chain as a regen advisor, because you're bringing in a lot more emissions data. So
yeah, it must be massive.
As complex as to simplify it, a carbon emissions rule of thumb, if you've got a cow, it's 1.5 tons of carbon dioxide per year. If you've got a sheep, it's 150 kilograms of carbon dioxide per year equivalent. So if you've got 1,000 sheep running around, you've got, what is that, 150 times 1,000, 15 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent a year to offset, and 150 if it's 1,500 if it's cow. And then you kind of go, well, how do I find 1,500 tons of carbon dioxide sequestering on my farm, and over time, how am I going to get carbon neutral? So Susie,
right.
how are you going?
Now it's gone off my screen after all that. Okay, so 3 SB PL 113.
Thank you. Okay, and is that 49 Sharps Road?
No, it's 903 Tabilk Moni Road. So 903 TABL. Yep, that one. Yep.
Okay, so just because my screen is covered in, I've got too much brightness here. I'm going to move inside. I can barely see my own work.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm over at my mum's in Dubbo.
Looks a bit warmer than here.
Yeah. Okay, so Susie, is this the farm, or can you identify from here where
I
you
can't zoom in. So we border the
to
to
build?
Money Road, Dargalong Road. Can you see Dargalong Road? Morgan's Lane, see up,
Yep, Diabalong here and to Bilkmoney. So it's probably
and Morgan's. Have you got Morgan's
Morgan's is up here.
North? Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So that little L there that you've highlighted,
Mm.
that is that's our corridor, and that little block next to it is not us.
Right. So that's your corridor. I
I
can,
think I share that corridor. Is there a little?
yeah.
It's a bit hard. Can you just zoom out a little bit?
Yep.
Um,
And then the to Bilkmoney Road's here. So you might have another section on this side of the road.
no, so we are to Bilkmoney on the south side, Morgan's on the north side, so to speak, as it is. And is that Babylon's Lane?
Butler's Lane is here.
Yeah, so that's not us either side of that L that you've highlighted. It's probably much. Does it tell you what acreage that is? That highlighted section?
It can give me a
Because
second.
then I can tell you whether it's incorporating it all.
106 hectares.
Look, it's not far off that. I think it's a little bit more than that, but it's probably goes a little bit further west towards Babylon's Lane.
Yep. Okay.
There should be, if you zoomed in, there should be a gate there actually.
Often the legal boundary and the physical fence lines are different, but the legal boundary for that lot and DP, we'll just use that L.
Okay. Yeah.
Then what we're going to do is create an emissions report. Now I won't do this year so that we can come back to that when we're more confident. This is just a way to go through the process and understand what you're doing. So we'll do the year before. And what we're going to do is you can see grayed out a bunch of questions. And so consumables talks to what are you putting on pastures? How many sheep of what class? How much wool are you producing? Any purchases of sheep? Any supplementary feed? And they're all your emissions. What will be the things that count against you? Then we'll look at the trees that you've planted over time, and that is your sequestration. Then we're going to allocate your whole farm to the meat or the wool, and then you'll get a summary. So did you put on any urea in the last 12 months on that farm?
No.
0. Any lime in the last 12 months?
No.
Great. Any super?
No.
Any nitrogen?
No.
Great. Any pesticides?
No. No glyphosate.
Great. See how quick it can be.
So we did put guano on, but
that's fine. It doesn't have an emission factor. Yeah. Do you know roughly how much petrol and diesel you used?
Well, I'd have to ask Jack because we have been doing cover crops over there on sort of half of it, I guess. But I have no idea what that would equate to. Do you want me to guess?
No, just guess. And the reason I'd say just guess is it's going to equal 1/5 of bugger all anyway.
Yeah, it's sort of like Jack would go around there with a tractor, half a dozen times a year, really, and spend the day, whatever that equates to in diesel. No petrol, it's all diesel.
It might be 0 in petrol and 1,000 litres if it's that in diesel. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you know the bill, either monthly, quarterly?
No, we're off grid, so no.
0, and that means it's 100% renewable. Great. What sort of sheep are you running? And you got 1 mob, 2 mobs, 3 mobs running around there?
We have 1 mob and they're merino ewes.
Breeding ewes?
We're talking last year. So the thing is, Wardy, we run both farms as one farm just to confuse the whole matter.
Do you want to run this analysis over both farms? I can go and locate the other farm if you want.
Boy, you're going to ask me questions I really don't know the answer to, but yeah, we can do that. It's probably more meaningful, isn't it?
Could be. I mean, again, it's really just an estimate to kind of help you. If it's all
Yeah.
the same sheep across both farms, and
Yeah.
they're going to be 90% of your emissions anyway, as long
Yeah.
as we have relatively good figures for how many sheep you're running, we'll have relatively good estimation.
Yeah. Well, if we're going on last year, it's probably just easier to keep it as this farm because it'll be it'll be simple. Simpler.
Do you know the head count then? Does it fluctuate over the year or is it pretty consistent?
We have been increasing it, but let's just say, well, this year we've got 750 ewes.
Yep. And I'll just average that across every season.
But in spring, of course, autumn, we lamb now, so we end up with
I'll add the lambs as another.
okay, yeah.
Bucks. Yep. And do you know, are you running 50 or 60 kilogram ewes?
Oh, that'd be 65.
You're running donkeys.
Except for the ones we bought from your mum's place from Dubbo, and they're probably about 60.
Yeah, they've been eating rocks. We're gonna just put a low feed conversion because they don't put on that much weight.
Not all sheep. No.
And then we'll add the lambs and they'd be
Yeah. So we crossed with the white Suffolk. So yeah, they're
trade lambs.
trade lands. Yep.
Yep. And that's annual lambing. Okay, and that's an autumn or a spring lambing?
Autumn, yeah.
And how many would you get 100% lambing conversion or a bit less?
Yeah, you'd hope so.
So
Not really, probably a bit less with this year with maidens, but we've got maidens on this year. But it's confusing because it's going to look like a lot of lambs on. So yeah, the problem with doing it this way and adding lambs in is our lambs never go to that block. So we only send our ewes over there post shearing when we're weaning the lambs. We wean the lambs, keep them here, and then the sheep go over there and we rotate them sort of once.
Yep.
And then they come back here. And then So am I confusing you?
No, it's I'm going to treat it as your whole farm and we'll go back and we'll grab the land base
and
for that later.
Make it bigger. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess their live weight as lambs, what, 20 kilos, 30 kilos, 40 kilos?
I'll just say 20, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there'll be more than that when, 20, 25, but not obviously when they're born.
Yeah.
So autumn, I'd be calling them more like 10 to 15 kilos, I would have thought. Then, yeah.
And they get up to 25.
And get up to 20 in winter and then 25 in spring. Yep.
Okay. And if we're taking that as 5 kilograms over 90 days, that's roughly 0.5 of a kilogram a day.
Optimistic, but no, that'd be right. That'd be
right. Yeah.
That'd be right.
Won't be too far wrong. Okay. Continue. Great. And we've already got that in. So 0, 0, 0. We did lambs as a separate mob.
Oh, okay.
Presumably, if you're doing the whole farm, there'll be rams as well.
Yeah.
We can go back and add some lambs in there if you want. Rams, rather. Rams.
They don't take up a lot of. One ram is equivalent to the same as a wether, so there's not that many of them.
Do you know how many kilograms of greasy wool?
Yeah, no, sorry, that's totally not my domain. That's Jack's domain. I'm the grass person.
It'll probably be 5 kilos times 750. Anyone good at maths? So it's 3,750 kilograms. And do you know your percentage of clean wool? Probably 30 to 50%, maybe even higher, 60%.
Around 60% or something.
Yep.
Or higher.
Yep. And so it's 750 that are shorn. Continue. All right. And sheep purchases through the year. Well, you're just a replacement flock, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. So let's not complicate it by saying yes, but we did because of the prices. Yeah, not that everyone wants to know all that, but we sold our old sheep, bought young sheep last year, given it was a good time to do that.
Yep. Well, that makes sense. And did you feed them anything? Grain? Hay?
We don't feed grain, but we do feed hay, mainly whilst they're lambing.
Yep.
But that's last year. Do you know, actually last year we did not feed them.
Okay. That's all right.
This
Any
year,
cottonseed? Probably not. And I know you've only recently purchased this property compared to the other one, but do you know what tree plantings might have gone on that farm?
well, last year we planted, I reckon probably 1,000 trees over there.
Yep. And
All tube stock. Yeah.
yep. Now we can map that.
Mm.
Do you know where you planted? Was it down this road?
It started at Morgan's Lane.
Yep.
On the other side.
Yep.
So if you go all the way down there.
Yep.
And then that actually goes all the way to the Tabilk-Moni Road.
Yep.
And then also, if you go back up, where that other, where the bottom of the L is.
Yep.
And the top of the L. So see the top of the L?
Up here. Yep.
No, sorry, there, that line across to Dargalong Road.
Yep.
We did that as well.
Great. I will just, that's a total of about 7.5 hectares. Does that sound right?
Probably about right.
Yep.
Might be a bit more than.
Susie, was there some direct seeding in there?
Yes, and Janet, in one section, it's coming up.
Oh, good.
In our little section, not the funded section.
Oh.
Yeah.
So your live weight sheep sales would be, sorry, that's going to be your lambs, 750 lambs at 25 kilograms.
Yeah.
25, that's 187 times. Yeah, 100.
Are you wondering what our lamb sales were? I can
yeah,
tell you.
do you know? Great.
Yeah, it's on my app. What do we do? 30, 40, 70, I don't know, around 70, 80,000. Is that what you're asking for? Oh, kilograms or dollars?
Kilograms, if that's right.
Oh, okay. That's different. Well, are we talking live weight or?
Yep, live weight.
Oh, so just I'll calculate 750 times. Their live weight would have been. We talk dressed weight. Sorry. Let's just say 45 kilos.
Okay. So 750 times 45.
I'll calculate that. 750 times 45. So 35,000 kilos.
Yep. And we'll divide the fuel use, which wasn't much, between wool and meat, essentially. and we'll do the same for electricity usage. Now, what this produces, 0 tons of inputs, bugger all consumables, bunch of trading lambs producing a bunch of greasy wool, and a little bit of tree planting. And then what we do is we go view reports, and your total tons of carbon dioxide equivalent is 276, less 7 tons of sequestration from those young trees that you put in, giving you a net emissions of 268, which gives you a live weight, kilograms per kilogram. So you've got 5 kilograms of carbon in each kilogram of meat, and 18 kilograms of carbon per kilogram of wool. And if we look at this, because you're a low input producer, you're not putting on heaps of urea and super, and even if you did, still it's typical to have 90+% of your farm emissions being scope 1, and that comes, these are your scope 1 emissions over here, that comes from methane, and by and large, so the ruminating of the animals. Now, just a quick side note, this doesn't talk to fairness, right? Like I hear a lot of farmers quite rightly saying, you know, on a small carbon cycle, anything that we photosynthesize and we turn into green leafy material, we're either going to have to consume through an animal, ruminate, we're going to oxidize because it grows old, withers and dies, or it's going to burn, right? That's all that can happen with plants. And only through rumination do you get taxed, essentially, as a farmer. So I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying these are the figures that they'll use as an estimate of what your carbon intensity is, what your gross is, and what your net is. And so that helps us move along. And there may come a time where Australia does what the US is doing and saying, we're only counting scope 1 and 2. We're not counting emissions from our livestock. But at the moment, that isn't Australia's policy position. And so we're more akin to the Europeans in that respect. And we're at a competitive disadvantage to the US. But that's what we've decided to do as a group, as an industry. So I've just downloaded that report. Now, the next thing I want to show you, Susie and Co, is we've set up a digital twin for you. And I'll just take you into a digital twin. So the digital twin for Susie, does this look like home? At Sharps Road, by the way, because
that's home. There's no infrastructure except a new shed. Yeah, that's us.
Yeah. Okay. So that is located differently to the Tabil Manaya farm that we just did. This is based off the address that you gave me. But do you happen to have a shape file, a KML file, a Google Earth file of the 2 farms? The one we just did the emissions for, and the one that is the bigger, more.
Yeah.
You have a map, basically.
No, I don't have. Susie Slee does.
Of the farm or of her?
She'll have it of our farm.
Great.
I think she's mapped. Hasn't she, Janet, mapped all the?
She's a tiger on her mapping.
Yeah.
To it. Yes, she would have it.
So I can get access to it. I do tend to use the app I use for our livestock, which is like a Maya grazing app, is the map I use. So it's on my phone, but not on my laptop.
Are you using Maya or AgriWeb or Carbon Atlas?
I use a one called Mobble, which is MOBBLE. It's similar, but it's half the price, and it's fine for our size enterprise.
Yeah, look, growing up, all we used was Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, exactly. But it does have a map. It does have mapping on it. So that's what I use as far as if we're splitting up paddocks and putting a new fence in. That's what I use. Yeah, which.
What I might do, doesn't have to be done now, can be done with Vanessa, it can be done at another time, is download a shape file or a KML or a KMZ. These are all, sorry to use lingo, but these are all just maps, right? And they give you the outline of the farm. And rather than spend, you know, what could be quite awkward, which is me saying, oh, do I go left, right, down, you know, and we map and we can draw on your farm. So if I, for example, create a land asset, I'm just going to, for example, we might call this add land asset. I'm going to go example 1. And I'm just going to use a paddock, and we're going to go here, and with a polygon tool, which is this one, you might go dong, dong, and you'll tell me this is your neighbors or something, but it's all right. It's just an example. Right?
That's ours. Yeah.
That's yours, right? So on that, you press save, and now you've mapped one of your paddocks, right? Now we could map the whole of your farm using a similar strategy of adding new land assets to get your farm boundaries. But to do that over and over, especially if you've been time controlled grazing for several years, you might have 20, 30, 100 paddocks, and it's far better to take it from Mobble and just upload it to your digital twin. And the way that we'll do that uploaded, and again, this is just for examples so that the team knows this is what Vanessa will be taking people through, is you'd go, this is uploaded from the whole property. And what you'd do potentially is choose a KML file, and I'll just choose anyone from my previous. Oh, that's in Tasmania. Let's not do that. I don't know what that one will be, but you bring in the cadastral files and then location, and you press save. And what that's done is, oops, I didn't mean to download that. If I now go to my records, assets, overview, you can see our first asset was the one based on your address. The second was the example paddock we used. And the third was the uploaded boundaries that we've used. And assets are one of the most common things we use in environmental markets, particularly land assets. But you probably have structures, wool sheds, sheds, houses, water pump sheds, which you might like to put on. And you probably have water assets, farm dams, wetlands, creeks, etc. Again, you add them the same way by going add asset, be it a land asset or we'll go on that, put a dam in just to show you how it works. Add water assets, farm dam.
So similar to, we did a whole farm plan, but was it GLIS? Is that the old
Yep, GIS. Yep.
GIS, was it? Anyway, I think it was a bit of a disaster for everyone, and it was over COVID, but this is exactly what we did. We mapped everything and put dams in, put troughs in, fencing.
Right. Right. And we're just going to do that as a shonky dam map. If you've got that already, send us, as in send Vanessa and or myself, the shape file or the KML or the KMZ file of the mapping that you've done, and we'll load this up into your twin so you're not replicating work. Okay.
So with the Mobile app, with what I've got on Mobile, how do I do that? How do I save that to as a shape file or a?
You know what?
I guess I could ask them, can't I?
I've not used Mobile, but typically, like the way that this software works, ours is you can go to one of the assets and you just say farm dam, which was the last one we did, and it literally downloads. We did it before by accident. Overview. Where we went. Give me that one. And it downloads records overview. We know that we've got 3 land assets. Don't. And you should be able to find a list of your boundaries or files, shape files. And
I'll have a look, and I'll also talk to them as to how I can
download the map. Yeah.
There's probably an export function, or is it mobile.io, Susie? The actual thingy. If I put in the chat there, I just Googled export map mobile, and there's a thing that says you can download a KML file.
Okay. Yep. Okay, great.
Like
Yeah.
So there you go. That's what I found, Lonnie. So
Thanks for that, Anthony. Yep. Okay.
So
when in doubt, Google it.
Yeah. I didn't dare. I thought I might lose the Zoom meeting.
And then if you send that to either myself or Vanessa, we'll upload it so that you don't have to tell every one of those mapping things. You can more quickly populate your twin. But your twin's looking okay. Like, no, where was your twin? Maybe I skipped over it.
Got a lot going on that screen.
I do, don't I? Just going back in access. Oh, there it was after all that. So from your digital twin, you'll add assets or you'll upload them if you've already got them. The other thing that you'll typically use is a log. And the logs that we most typically use are an activity. So for example, you might want to create an activity log in the future called bird count, right? And you don't want to do the bird count today. You want to do it next month, let's say. So we're looking at May, and you want to do it on May the 28th. And let's say you want to use a particular type of like an Excel version. We're just going to go back to downloads. Bird count. Do I have a bird count? No, I don't. But let's say this Excel spreadsheet was a bird count Excel spreadsheet. You can simply load it up, and what you've got is the activity doing a bird count. So you might say to the person do the bird count using the attached method, right? And you've just uploaded what the method is. And you can assign that to somebody over here. And then you press save. And now when you're on your homepage, it'll say, here's your activity logs. Here are the 3 land assets and the 1 water asset we've done. You can see view upcoming logs and pending. And that should help you to manage all of your environmental activity. So you've got mostly assets, mostly land assets, and mostly logs, mostly activity logs. And they're the things that you use to drive your digital twin. And
The mobile app we do that, right? So it has tasks, activities, movement, stuff. Yeah.
And that'll be perfect for your productive part of the business. But
not so much.
Model probably won't have, in fact, it won't have features for managing environmental plantings or features for managing a bird count. Typically wouldn't be something that you find in your sheep grazing kind of application. And we're not trying to get the digital twin to do the livestock movements. We'd rather you use custom software like Mobile or, whatever AgriWeb or whatever you're using. But it's for these environmental projects that typically you don't have software out there that helps you manage the piece of land, the tasks that are being done. And as we get more sophisticated, you end up doing what we call sequences. So a sequence would be, on the first part of the year, let's say you're doing preparation for a planting, and then the next part of the year will be like acquisition of the seed stock or the tube stock or whatever. And then you'll do the next one, which is planting. Then you might have an irrigation, you might have some fencing. All of that goes into a sequence and tells you, okay, this is what I need to do when, as the farmer. And that makes it a lot easier to manage your environmental projects in the same way as you manage your existing grazing planning. And it's simply a planning and data recording bit of software. And why do you want to do that? Well, if you think about what's coming for farmers, in particular, they're going to have to prove their impact on climate and environment. And if they've got a piece of software that has said, hey, do this, and then they've done that and they've changed the log from pending to done, that's the evidence they need in order to show that they've been doing the practices that generate the reason for the person to pay them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely.
So that's 90% of what you'll use your twin for assets and logs. There are a few other things that are in here. So if you're doing a soil carbon project, you might need to do cores, and you need chain of custody over this core was at this site and this bag, it represents this core, and this barcode went on this bag, got sent to the soil tester, and it came back with X results. So FarmLab is for soil samples, chain of custody. Look C is a carbon estimator using the CSIRO sequestration, and it has access to all the previous carbon projects that were done. So I'll just show you how that works. We're going to choose that example paddock, example 1. That's because I can't spell. Example 1. And then we're going to say, create an estimate for what could I do with that paddock. And it's going off to CSIRO, and it's saying, based on all the ERF methods, based on all the previously registered projects, what is the best use of that land with respect to sequestering carbon? And so it's saying here, soil carbon going from 1.4%, which it identifies as your district average, to 2.4% over 25 years, would give you 128 ACCUs per year. And you might go, well, actually, you know what? We use a bit of guano. We use great planned grazing. And over 25 years, I suspect we'd actually get up to, oops, sorry, we'd get up to 1.5% increase in soil organic carbon over 25 years. Well, that takes it from 128 to 192. And you're saying, well, maybe actually we're not at 1.4, we're closer to 2.
2.5 or something.
Yeah.
Two. Just say 2, yeah.
Yeah. And then you're seeing the ACCUs per year change.
Wow,
And
that's great.
you're able to do a cost benefit analysis of whether it's worthwhile putting on some guano to take you up, you know, higher. Okay. And then it would say, well, what if you didn't want to do soil carbon, which gets you the best result, but you wanted to use environmental plantings? And it would estimate based on that piece of property, given all the previous projects that have been done, then you're looking at 104 ACCUs per year. Now, just to remind you, what we came up with in Ruminati for you was 268 ACCUs per year. And if we took that whole example 1 paddock at its highest, it was sort of half of what you would need to be doing in terms of carbon projects to get to carbon neutral, to get to net zero.
So with that one, with the next one that you did, reforestation, what is that assuming that you're doing?
Planting trees that then
how many though? And
it would necessarily mean reforestation, so they have to get to greater than 20% canopy cover and greater than 2 meters tall.
right.
And then how many trees achieves 2 meters tall and 20% canopy cover is really something that will be specific to the types of trees, the amount of rainfall you get, etc. But probably Janet, with your wealth of experience, you'd probably have a rule of thumb in your district for how many hectare or how many trees per hectare or density you need.
Yeah, it's about 500 per hectare of trees and shrubs.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Does that take into account remnant vegetation that might be existing on the site?
No, in fact, remnant needs to get excluded from a carbon estimation area, and you can only use the bits that aren't yet a forest to show what reforestation or afforestation you've had.
Yeah, it has to be changed.
That's right.
So Wardy, for some of our their landholders who aren't farmers, like they've got some lifestyle people, when it comes to, you know, the carbon emissions estimate and then the on-farm stuff, likely most of that will be basically skipped through, but then they can use these types of tools to draw their polygon of their property and estimate what individually that block of land could be if it was put under reforestation, soil carbon, whatever. Yep. And then you can look at it as a whole. So there's those 3 landholders in a row all up one particular road that we drove past, I think, when we were there. And so you could start to look at that
as a whole.
As a whole.
Yeah. I mean, if they're lifestylers, they'll probably have no emissions because they've got no livestock, and they'll only have sequestration. And internally, what you kind of want to do, we call it the nearest and dearest. You want to sort out those people that are in your local area sending kids to the same school using the same infrastructure. And so the carbon that is being produced potentially by the lifestylers can be inset for the farmers without those farmers having to go out into the public market to buy carbon to get to net zero. and without the people who are producing that carbon having the transaction costs of going to market, and you can save some money. Now, might still mean money flows from the people with livestock to the people without livestock to get to net zero. But the assumption is that those with livestock are now getting a premium because they're carbon neutral, right?
So you're talking about aggregating those.
By the way, aggregation is an option. It is not compulsory, right? So we typically, this is live data. In the northern rivers of New South Wales, they're smaller blocks, like they're lifestylers, and where you have got production, that high land value, high rainfall. We are having to aggregate them because none of them are big enough to stand up as a cost-effective project, given the costs of registration and the costs of ongoing compliance. In the southern tablelands, Yass, Burrawa, that sort of area, at the moment, none of them are aggregated. They can all stand up their own projects and be self-proponents. The mutual is a good vehicle for aggregation because we're one member, one vote. We need to make enough money to keep the lights on, but we've got no third-party shareholders that need an accelerated return. So as long as it kind of can wipe its own ass and everybody gets what they need, aggregation through the mutual happens in the following way. We take a lease of that particular carbon estimation area from multiple farmers, and then we front the regulator as the project proponent, and we just point to the different carbon estimation areas across multiple farms as the area that we're doing the project for. And then we get paid based on the accus that each of those carbon estimation areas, and we pay a lease to the farmers for leasing that portion of the land. Yeah, as I say, there are plenty of farmers who don't need that aggregation, who don't need to come together to make it economic, and we totally support them as well in going through the process. So it's an option, not a compulsory component of being in a landscape impact program.
Yep. Well, it's all an exploration piece as well, isn't it, to find out? Yeah, when it works. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting, Vanessa, to like once you've done the onboarding, to share sort of the, like I know when you showed me in the progress report the different size landholds, you know, because I've got that stuff of the landholders, and so it sort of ranges from, you know, 450 to 550 hectares is the upper end, down to, you know, 22 or small little lifestyle block hectares. So you've got that diversity, but yeah, anyway, it's just interesting to see that. So yep.
And to be clear, what we're going to have by the end of week 5 is 10 profiles for carbon emissions, right? We might have 3 of them having no emissions because they've got no livestock, and 3 that are sort of medium intensity, and 4 that are larger intensity. I'm making those figures up, but that helps us identify how you'd engage at a landscape impact program with those different landholder types. And we know that over the next couple of weeks, Vanessa will have gone through and done her onboarding with all 10. And then when we come together in week 6 for our mapping session, we're using that combined knowledge, and Vanessa does a lot of that, but then we're also standing around a physical map going, oh, look, there's already this east-west corridor. What if we did a north-south that connected that east-west? Or what if we extended that east-west a bit further along? And it's all those discussions that we have. But before we can get to the mapping, we have to do these individual analyses of the different sort of pilot tents.
So just with the landholder hat on. So we're probably best just to treat that to-built property as a standalone property and just calculate the fact that there's animals on there for whenever they are on there. So let's just say it's only 3 months of the year and they're only ewes. That would be a lot more meaningful than here where we've already done a whole lot of stuff. Would that, or do you want?
It's
Yeah.
going to come out in the wash, because what you do in to build, you'll still have on the other farm the requirement to do that. So I'd merge the two farms into one carbon emission, and I'd treat it like one farm, even though it's two farms, because the same livestock are running over both of them. I assume. If
Well, at
you
the moment they are until that novelty wears off. Yeah.
are you trucking them or moving them down a?
Yeah, right. So,
Okay.
and obviously you can't truck lambs and so it's restrictive. So, but the reason we're doing that is it's a bit of an open canvas over there. It's had a grey box corridor, it's had direct seating, it's had some funding before we bought it, and then we've added to that, but it's 4 paddocks. So we're like, how do we graze this properly? You know, with 100 sheep, which is probably really all it can run as a standalone property without having to, which is sort of why I put it up actually, because what it needs fencing firstly.
Yeah.
And we don't really, because we're Regen Farmers Mutual, we're about the environmental assets. But if you're dealing with a Regen advisor, right, locally, they're going to be familiar. The way that we choose them is they can understand the agricultural and the environmental trade-offs. So they'll understand. Okay, you might have a lower looking emissions profile on the to-built property, but the Sharps Road property is going to have a higher looking emissions. Is it a good idea to merge them or keep them separated for carbon estimation purposes? And that'll be like a decision you as the farmer can make in an informed way, because you can literally run the Ruminati calculation several times over, right? It's not set in stone by Moses. So the one we just did, we can go back in and add the other block of land that you at Sharps Road, and you can compare. Well, how does that look if I look at it just at to built versus Sharps Road? Hey, Sharps Road, we've done heaps more plantings on since 1990, and we now get to count that sequestration where we couldn't count it into bilk. And now our net, even though it's the same number of sheep, but we were just counting them on one plot of land, now we're counting 2 plots of land and the sequestration from 2 plots of land. Our net has come down. Therefore, our intensity, our kilograms of carbon per kilogram of wool or meat, that'll come down. So you get to make agronomic decisions with these tools as to how you report. But standing here today, I don't know what the right thing for you guys in your context is, but it's a tool to help you do that. Yeah.
Wow, Vanessa, you've got a job ahead of you.
So have you've got to buy all the farms between Sharps Road and to built Road?
No, we're in our 60s, Janet, not our 40s. Yeah, we're meant to be getting easy. It's meant to be getting easier. But I must say that the way we're farming now that we've learnt that you don't have to farm the other way, it's a lot easier, a lot less stressful.
A bit of electric fence can go a long way, can't it?
Well, we've got sheep, so it's, it'd be a lot easier if we had a bunch of wethers and we didn't lamb and we had cows and everything else, but that's not the way it is.
They say that the best thing you can do in a soil carbon project is move from sheep to cattle.
100%. I'd do it tomorrow if that's what, and also I think ecologically we'd get there way faster because we'd be able to split our 30 paddocks into 60 very easily.
Yeah.
With cows, but we're not really cattle country down here, so Yeah, and plus we've just built an old style shearing shed over at Tabilk, so we're keeping this sheep.
Fair enough.
Yes, more of an exercise, a thought exercise, yeah.
Well,
But
you have a blank canvas like the new people that have moved up to Ruffy area, and okay, they're small, but it doesn't matter, and they're going to have to put something on there to eat the grass. They're the sort of really important decisions when you don't have anything. They're the decisions to make at the get-go.
Yeah, get it right in the first place.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah.
have I told you about the $1 million carbon horse?
No.
These smart asses in the Hunter Valley that are the Coolmore stud. So they've got horses running around that are worth hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars anyway. But they've also got large cattle areas. Horses, the ones that run around Randwick or Moonee Valley or whatever, they're not subject to carbon emissions. So all their cattle emissions, they just apply to these horses. So $1 million carbon horse, carbon neutral beef.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Woody, one thing that came up yesterday that Vanessa and Janet and I were talking about was the protected manners search tool.
Yep.
And Janet says that there's a local version in that can help identify like vegetation types and
Yeah.
threatened species and stuff. You go, Janet. You want to explain what that one is?
There's an online version of the Goulburn Broken Revegetation Guide, and you can just click on your property and it'll print out all the plants that you could use in a revegetation project, and then it goes through to a list of all the possible plants that could be on your project. It would still need someone to come and check off to see whether you had that endangered species.
But that's great. Do you know the URL for that?
Oh, just go to Goulburn Broken CMA and then search revegetation guide.
Yep, there it is.
There it is. And then you do the same as what you've been doing. You click on a map of your property. So you would click a zone.
Yeah.
And then you can get right down to a site level almost.
So we're talking this area?
Yeah. Well, Susie's down here.
Susie's down on the plane. She's in the light blue.
Sorry.
Yeah, so she would have to go onto the light blue zone. She would be Longwood Plains. Yep. And then it would get closer and it would list what sort of a landscape she was talking in. So
yeah,
be perhaps the flats. Just not creek line.
There is a creek, but
yeah, there was plains, but further down.
Yeah, further Plains, Creek Line, Woodlines. Anyhow, you find your EVC.
Yeah.
A bit, scroll down a bit, scroll down a bit, scroll down a bit.
And,
just plains.
Which rainfall you belong to.
Yeah. And then you click on the list somewhere, the species, and then it'll create a list of all the EVC species.
Great. Well, that's a heaps useful tool. What we tend to use is the MST, and I'll just run it very quickly for you, Susie. So you what's the Tabilk 309, was it?
903.
903.
Tabilk Moonee. Yep. I'll just go to the Arboretum, Janet, and ask them what to plant.
Yes, ask them what's rare there.
And then
come and have a look.
I've already ordered my lot for this year.
Oh.
Oh, I'm just gonna draw a quick polygon because protected matter search tool is a bit of a rough and ready tool in the first place.
Oh, yeah. So that comes out with all the protected species.
That's right. So it gives you, for example, we'll generate this as a Excel report. And then I'll show you what you get. Yeah, man. Open up.
So Susie is box grassy woodland, which is an endangered.
Threatened ecological community.
Yeah.
Yep. So if we want to look at those, my Excel is coming up by the sounds of it. It's just taking a little while. Fudge bucket. Come on.
So is this more than just it's animals, insects, reptiles, everything?
Yeah. So here it talks to what are your Ramsar wetlands in the area. You're 400 to 500 Ks away from any of the wetlands. Then communities, you've got the boxgum yellow box and the derived native grasses. And then you've got bull oak not far from you. And then you look at the threatened species and you can see these, there's only 40 odd of them, but they'll divide them by frog, reptile, bird, insect, mammal, and they'll tell you what their state is. And the best thing is, as you'll see in week 4 and week 5 of this program, we use this to then understand what are the management actions that you need to support the habitat that supports
Yeah,
that particular mammal or insect or bird or reptile or amphibian or whatever.
So Susie would have, say, squirrel glider, so she needs hollows or nest boxes. Maybe grey crown babblers.
Absolutely. So what I'm
and
doing
when
here,
you put that down, can you then add that into one of your tools in here?
yep. So I'm just showing you now. What we're going to do is upload your
Oh, species watch list.
list, and then we're going to apply that to the whole property. And we're going to bring in that file that we just downloaded.
Oh, wow.
And we'll go save. And while we're here, we may as well bring in your emissions estimate 1 for the property, and we'll bring that up as well. That's that one. And now, again, looking at your overview, you've got 5 land assets, 1 water asset, 1 log that we've done today. And they don't take long to do, as you can tell. We've done a few. If you were to go into the land assets, you've got these protective species watch list, you've got your emissions estimate, you've got the uploaded cadastral files that we'll get from Mobile. You've got an example of where you might do a carbon project, if you were to do a carbon project. And these are the things that we aim to get done for onboarding. This is by no means a full environmental farm assessment. This is by no means a farm kind of strategy, but it's getting you established with a digital representation of your real world farm assets and environmental assets that are on your farm. Okay.
Wow.
So does your digital twin show you what ideally it could look like?
Nah, it's
Ah,
pretty dumb. But uh, uh, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but we're about to leave the software of that we're using at the moment for our digital twins. And we basically started in 2022 needing a digital twin data store. And so we used an open source software called Farm OS and we rebranded it. We've subsequently got a really smart boy called called Luke Consolado on board, and Luke's building us a GIS system, a geographical information system with a large language model. And what it will enable you to do when it is released is you can ask your farm questions like, where's the most appropriate place to do a leaky weir or an intervention, right? And it'll look at your digital elevation model and your forested areas, and it'll look, and then it'll say, well, this is the best place to do stuff. And you say, well, how do I do a leaky weir? And then it'll give you the sequence of steps that you need in order to make that intervention. So the question you asked, like, does it tell you today what is the best thing to do or what it could look like? No, but is that where we're headed? That is ultimately where we're headed. And everything we do in Farm OS, we'll be able to lift and bring straight across to your new version of the digital twin. But I don't think, it's just not in a state to be used at the moment, the second version. So we are kind of using our first version of the digital twin for now, but it will get smart. And these things, the way that AI and large language models are going, it'll get really smart really quickly. But we think we're one of the first people to use a large language over a GIS. Most of them are about how do I complete this exam question, and you enter in the question and it answers them for, it gives you a university paper really quickly, but it doesn't know how to look at a map and it doesn't know how to interpret what's on a map. But we're trying to get it to that point. Yeah.
do your maps come out with contour lines?
Yeah, let me show you, for example.
Can you do a contour on the to built property?
Yeah.
Has it got any?
It has two, I think.
So where you'll find that is here. So very low levels of slope and elevation. But if we were to go, I don't know, towards the Strathbogies, there we go.
There we go.
There are sewer lines. Yeah. So
how specific are they? Like to what meterage? Do you know?
they're just publicly available. So
Okay.
No, what's the gap between the contour lines? Like
the big meters. So that's 300 and that's 350, and there's 5 meters, but 5 lines between them. So there'll be 10 meters.
Yeah, 10 meters.
Yeah.
And you could do fractional veg cover, for example.
So is that existing tree cover?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, well, that's fractional. This is veg. This is tree.
Yeah. So what's fractional mean?
So I'm going to, at risk of getting this wrong, my understanding is the way that satellites look at things is on the spectrum. So it can look at like an image and go, oh, that's got tree cover and that is bare ground. And so you can get vegetation relatively easy.
Mhm.
Fractional cover refers to the bandwidth. So that's really about the ground cover that you've got. If you've got a low bandwidth, it means that you've got lots of interference from green leafy plants. If you've got a high bandwidth, it's basically bare ground and it's just radiating back up to you. And so there's a color code that basically tells you. So one is ground cover and one is vegetation cover.
So it wouldn't be differentiating between giant blackberry clumps and native vegetation.
No, it's not smart like that. No, you need the plant community types and things to be, at a finer grain than that. And we're just getting in this digital twin, publicly available Google and Mapbox and OpenStreetMap. So it's not smart like a Sentinel satellite can tell you what the plant signature looks like, whether it's blackberry or lantana versus eucalypt. But we don't have that in our digital twin at the moment. No, it's pretty dumb, to be fair. I mean, it's good. Like if you don't have a data store and if you don't have a map, this is a major step forward for most farmers because it makes a digital representation of your farm and you can start to make decisions using tools that you didn't have before. But so far as like what is possible technically, financially possible, you can, if you're the US, you can get down to millimeters of resolution. You can look in someone's backyard, but we're not at that level.
I have to head off, everyone. But thanks, team. Thanks for.
See ya.
We actually all need to jump. I've got to jump into a meeting as well. But
Oh yeah, it's 4 o'clock.
yeah, I wanted to cover off for
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone. And maybe we need to talk before we do the next one together, Woody.
Yeah, so the next one, I'll get you to line up the farmers for the next ones, if that's all right. And then I'll write.
One.
Next one is who?
Yeah, no, just one for the next one. And we do the process like Susie did. I wrote an email to say just log in and purchase the thing for $0 and blah blah. All of that. And schedule about 2 hours. And would it be worth also giving them an idea of the questions so that they come prepared? Because it's very easy that you have just no clue of what sort of data I'm going to ask you, and it's going to take hours and hours, isn't it?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. So maybe give them a clue wouldn't hurt, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like get them to
Okay.
put their pick along, and if they're grain growers, their national grower registration number, and those sorts of things. And just knowing, we'll ask you about fuel and energy and your sales of live weight, etc.
Yeah. Okay. And any time would suit you. Like if I arrange a time with them, I'll just let you know, and you will fit it in your schedule.
I'll do my best. Indeed, I'm going to be better
I
from.
want to be away.
Yeah. But I'll make it work because we need to get these done in the next couple of weeks. So we'll make it work. Okay.
Woody, do you think we can do it without a site visit?
Yeah. Yeah. The emissions estimate and the setting up of the twin doesn't need a site visit. We will visit key properties as part of the landscape impact program, but the onboarding doesn't need a site visit. If Vanessa wants to develop relationships so that, there's a potential for the consulting income to come to her from working with these farmers, that's over and above what's actually required. Yeah.
Okay. All right. See ya.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And we'll keep talking through the WhatsApp. Thank you.
Thanks.
And
Bye.
Susie for being such a great guinea pig.
Do you want me to go back and redo the whole thing?
Yes.
If you want, we can, because otherwise we're looking at just one of your two properties, and happy to spend that time with you if you want, or Vanessa as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That
I'm just
makes
thinking,
sense
I
as
think
well.
I now know like what I need, what information you need. So I'll just work out in our heads as to what the best way forward is.
Your big task will be downloading off the mobile into this.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll definitely have a crack at that. Yeah.
All right. See you next
Thank
week.
you.
Okay. Bye, everyone.